Good afternoon. It is Friday, July 16th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. I'd like to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start off with a roll call. We'll let the secretary note that all the commissioners are present. Also joining us up front here is City Manager Sharon Lynn, City Attorney Glenn Mandalis, and among the members of the public, we have Matt Janis from Building and Licensing, Chief Keith Banks of the Police Department, Kevin Williams, Public Works Supervisor, and Lynn Cohen, Communications Director. Welcome everybody for being here. We'd like to welcome all those that are here, but also welcome all those that are watching live streamed. We want to thank all the speakers. If you recall, the process for in-person meetings is if you want to speak, merely raise your hand at the appropriate time. You should be recognized and called on. We do have a registered speaker that is participating remotely, Dr. Michael Trejos. I will call on him at the appropriate time. Michael, Dr. Trejos, are you there? Usually I like to ascertain of all the different agenda topics, which ones do they want to focus on. So maybe we'll catch him later. With that, I do want to remind everybody that support documents, the documents that we have in front of us, if they are ready, available ahead of time, they are embedded into the agenda as support documents. Go to cityofrehoboth.com, click on the right side center of the page for the legislative portal, and then seek out the meeting date and type and seek the agenda, and you'll find the support documents there. As is the chair prerogative, I'd like to make a few changes to the sequencing in the agenda, and that is for new business 14C will come after item number 9 in order to accommodate our attorney. Max Walton, are you on board?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Good, thank you. Also, another change in sequencing of the agenda is old business item 13A and 13B will follow new business 14A. So I wanted you to note those changes ahead of time. With that, there is no correspondence that has been identified, correct, Dan? Correct. All righty, and with that, we'll go to approval of minutes. So we have 4 sets of minutes in front of us today. That's the executive session held on June 24th of this year, regular meeting held on June 18th, special meetings on June 18 and June 24th. Are there any corrections to those 4 sets of minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt and approve the 4 sets of minutes as noted.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gay and a second by Commissioner Byrne to approve the 4 sets of minutes as noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one street aid expenditure to Delmarva Power in the amount of $8,707.74 for streetlights.
I move approval of street aid expenditure in the amount of $3707.74.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Legree to approve the expenditure for Delmarva Power in the amount of $8,707.74. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the amount is unanimously approved. Thank you very much. With that, the next item,
Mayor.
oh, you have more?
Thank you.
There you go.
Regarding the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, DENREC has issued public notice of the city's construction permit application for Phase 3B improvements at the wastewater treatment facility, and these improvements will include construction of a new dewatering building, demolition of the existing sludge thickener tank, and retrofitting the waste sludge holding tank. Phase 3B construction will not take place until next year. Currently, we're still working on electrical upgrades under Phase 2 of the capital improvement project, and the city recently completed Phase 2A on an emergency basis, which was the replacement of the mixers. On July 27, Ryan Smith Productions, a film crew, will be in town filming a commercial for Navy Federal Credit Union. Filming will take place on the Beach Boardwalk and Rehoboth Avenue. Of course, this was scheduled through Chief Banks and through our communication specialist. Next week, there will be some intermittent detours. One on Olive Street, a residential facility will be undertaking fire protection system repairs in the ocean block of Olive Avenue. Intermittent detours should be expected next Tuesday and Wednesday. Also, city wastewater employees will be cleaning and conducting video assessments of sewer lines. Next Wednesday on July 21, Olive Avenue from First Street to the Boardwalk, Stokely Street Extension from State Road to School Lane, and Scarborough Avenue Extension from Route 1 to the street end. Streets will remain open, but intermittent detours around heavy equipment may be necessary. All work will begin at 8 a.m. And DelDOT has some detours themselves. They'll be inspecting the bridge over the canal over the next couple of weeks. Daytime and nighttime lane closures will be implemented from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday next week. There will be alternating one-way traffic on Roosevelt Street between Jefferson and Lee Streets and on Oyster House Road. Flaggers will direct motorists, and the following week, also on Tuesday and Wednesday, there'll be other right lane closures. I direct everyone to the city website or to DelDOT's website. Very briefly, parking and permits. The parking meter revenue up to July 15 yesterday is just shy of what was received in 2019. We compare that to the last full year. Of course, last year with COVID, I have those numbers, but there's not a good comparison for that. So July 15, as of yesterday, we're just shy of what the entire month of July was in 2019. So we're on schedule for that, and that's all for the parking meters. Permitting and permit revenue is over the top. A lot of people coming here. We've had record numbers last week, just last week, and for the whole year, I think certainly that will surpass what we did in 2019. So we have a lot of visitors in town. And also in and around Monday, July 26th, I say this because we still don't have a definitive time, the front desk window replacement will begin. So you'll recall that in the CIP, we had that window replacement in there that was approved, and that the bid was awarded to Delmarva Veterans, who did our parking building, and the supplies have been ordered and are expected to come in next week, and hopefully that work will begin on July 26th. We will reroute pedestrian traffic from the front doors into the convention center. The convention center doors and the staff who are in place at the front desk will be either in the lobby of the convention center area or right around the corner, or a combination of both, right around the corner in the conference room of the convention center. scheduled to take approximately 2 weeks. We hope it'll be less than that, and we'll have plenty of signage indicating that to folks. And that's what I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager?
Yes. Do we have any ability to contact DelDOT to reschedule the bridge inspections? I mean, as you just mentioned, this is the busiest time of the year, and to close one lane of inbound and outbound traffic during 9 and 3 and weekdays, I just would request that a contact be made to see if that could be rescheduled, because traffic, as we know, is horrible in town. Backs up on Columbia, backs up on to Route 1. It just seems an inappropriate time to be doing such a thing, and if it could be rescheduled into the fall season, I think that would, at least we could request that.
We'll reach out to them.
Thank you.
City Manager,
Go ahead, Ed.
Commissioner Czerniawski, go ahead.
City Manager, I think the original ask for the fix on the reconstructing the front window, I think was 87,000 or so. Is that the amount that is contracted for, or is it some amount less than that? I think we had some talk about there being other options, and 87 would be on the high end.
Right, correct. So we did scale that down quite a bit, and the bid came in approximately $30,500 from Delmarva Veteran Builders.
Thank you.
Commissioner LeGree?
Kevin, what is this? I'm sorry. What's the completion date scheduled for the dewatering building?
Hi, Commissioner. I don't have it obviously in front of me, but I believe it was a 2-year construction window to start in 2023. So
Okay.
start in end of 2022. So probably end of 2024
Yes.
for the completion of Phase 3B.
Thank you.
That it?
Yep.
Thank you. If there's no more questions for the city manager, we'll go to the city solicitor's report.
I don't have anything to report today, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. We have a bullet item for the city manager's report for A, and we got more beyond the A. I don't think we've ever seen what's finally proposed for the $87,000 at the front window, which would have been nice to be seen. And so now it comes back at $30,000, and would have been nice to be told about it earlier. Besides something, the bridge, I'll check in a minute, but I think the bridge work is going on Route 1 is going to be done at night. I think I'm right on that, only blocking Roosevelt Avenue underneath the bridge for under-bridge inspection. I've spoken with Louise Holt, and she said they have analyzed it, and the traffic under there will be fine. And I'll speak with Kevin, because the only thing the city has going underneath there is the trash trucks at night. But I believe that the inspection is under the bridge only and not over the top. And back to the item A for the city manager, I think it would be really nice to have an item B or a separate line for the public works director. And if public works is not going to say something, can we have an update on, from the beginning, other than crash, what happened at the Henlopen? Because it is of interest to the city, I don't know whether it fell on the boardwalk or what. I did not go there today to see if the other two sections that did not fall, if they've been supported up. Was there, I understood there was a preliminary report. Was that done for the Henlopen? And was there a final report? Has it come back, and does the city have copies of it? And I think you would all also be interested in that, or you should be. And then maybe an update on the fact that we have trash cans, unless it's changed. We don't have trash cans on the beach anymore. Let Kevin explain how that's working. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything? Nope, no, very good. If there are no more members of the public.
That's a question. And I think it's valid. And it is a bullet point.
I'm going to give a short thing on the Henlopen.
Yeah, so Matt, you want to update everyone on the Henlopen? I think we've had a structural engineer report from the Henlopen condos. We've also had a structural engineer report from the Henlopen Hotel, also from the condos. You can fill that in for me, thank you.
Certainly. So we are still awaiting the one report from the condos. We did have DeSabatino, who recently completed the railing replacement on the condo side of the building. They were contacted to remove the remaining portion of the soffit that was not removed 2 years ago under a separate building permit. They recognized the conditions 2 years ago and did something, took actions to remove that. They did not get the portion of soffit that was present along the boardwalk. It didn't appear to be failing at that time. Recent events obviously suggest that all of that construction is failing, so we are undertaking some inspections from different structural engineers who are producing reports for the fixes, for the temporary fixes, to be in place until a more robust operation can be undertaken. The replacement of those items is going to require cranes, probably various lift equipments, et cetera, out there. So it's going to be a pretty massive undertaking for the replacement of that condition. I have been working with the structural engineers to get those temporary braces in place, and we are waiting for the permitting process to go through at this time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. With that, no city solicitors reports. The departmental reports are embedded in the agenda for building and licensing, police department, and the fire company. With that, the board and commission reports is next. We have no reports identified, so the next business is new business number 14C.
Mayor, before we open that agenda item, because I represented the Planning Commission in that, I'm not going to take part in any of this discussion.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And Mayor, before you start on,
I want to open the topic.
okay,
Okay, thank you. This topic is again, it's 14C, approving and adopting the written decision of the commissioners regarding the Rehoboth Spotlight Clear Space Appeals from the Planning Commission. Would like to have a preface to this in that we've already conducted the appeal hearing and reached a decision. This topic today is not about the subject matter of the appeal. No public comment is allowed. This is between the commissioners. This agenda topic is only for consideration of approval of a written decision reflecting what happened at the appeal hearing. I'd like to see if our attorney is Max Walton is participating remotely. Do you have anything further you would like to add before we move forward, Max?
No, Mr. Mayor, other than this was also, the draft opinion was also embedded in the agenda.
Yes, this is also embedded in the agenda, correct. So with that, I would seek a motion to approve the written decision.
well, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the decisions voted by the commissioners at the June 30th meeting regarding the appeals of Clear Space Theater and Rehoboth Spotlight. And I have some good reasons for this, and I'd like to go into that.
Well, let's let our, okay, so we have a motion and a second by, Commissioner Cluzy and a second by Ed Chernowski to reconsider the decision of the appeal. Before we go to discussion, I'd like to have our attorney, Max Walton, weigh in, please.
It's one of those odd situations you find yourself in, which I haven't been in before. So I was just taking a quick peruse here of the code. And under 236.6 of appeals and reconsideration, if you go to subsection D, there is a provision which allows for the reconsideration of the Planning Commission final action by the Planning Commission to reconsider a condition imposed by the Planning Commission. Here, there is no express authority that I can see that allows the commissioners to reconsider their decision. I don't, so there isn't any authority in the code that allows for that. And since it's on a motion to reconsider, I just don't know how a court would view that, since I don't know that you have the authority to do that. But nonetheless, Commissioner, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's my view on that. And if necessary, I can go through the standards that the court uses under a court rule for reconsideration. But there is actually a rule there that says how you do it and the standards that need to apply.
Well, Max, I would like to move forward with this. If you're not unsure of whether it's allowable, I certainly think that we need to know that for sure. I have reasons I would like to really address the commissioners with the reasons that I have.
Commissioner, I just want to say, I don't know what a court or reviewing court would hold. I couldn't find any case law real quickly. I know you don't have the authority to do this under your own code, but I'm going to leave it to you to make your decision. I'm just saying, I don't know what would happen if let's say we walk this all the way through and the things change. I just don't know where that would put us in a legal position. I just don't know the answer. It's quite frankly almost unprecedented at this point in the proceedings. But with that said, go ahead and continue, and I'll let you guys debate.
Well, yeah, I would like to put this on the record in any case. So I believe that decisions made by the commissioners were improper based on guidance by our attorney. The standard of review is very narrow, and I believe some of the commissioners overstepped their role. And, as far as the standard is concerned, according to the city code, all appeals from the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission are on the record, and the mayor and commissioners review the record using the arbitrary and capricious standard by determining the final action taken by the Planning Commission was reasonable, and the result of an orderly and logical review of the evidence involved a proper interpretation of the application. So the mayor and commissioner's role is narrow. We affirm that the approvals is merely a confirmation by the mayor and commissioners that they engaged in an orderly and logical review of the evidence involved and was not arbitrary and capricious. So, that's by itself, I believe. And then there's the Delaware law. Delaware law says generally a municipality has no authority to deny a land development application that fully complies with all provisions of the Municipal Code. The approving authority, however, has the ability to impose reasonable conditions on such approval. In fact, there were 16 conditions. The municipality lacks unfettered discretion to deny an otherwise legally conforming subdivision application based on an impact-related concerns. And additionally, a municipality, and this is important, may not reject a site plan for a permitted use on the grounds that the project will adversely affect the general neighborhood. I believe that was part of where some of the commissioners were going with this. So that's one other piece of this. I really believe that if the commission does not reverse its decision and affirm the Planning Commission's decision, that we will be facing yet another lawsuit, and this time damages may be involved as the parcels that were to be site of the Clear Space Theater are now tainted. That, as far as that, when people purchase, and this is a Delaware court decision that I read, when people purchase land zoned for a specific use, they are entitled to rely on the fact that they can implement that use provided the project complies with the specific criteria found in the ordinances and subject to reasonable conditions which the Planning Commission may impose in order to minimize any adverse impact on nearby landowners and residents. To hold otherwise would subject a purchaser of land zoned for a specific use to the future whim or caprice of the commission by clothing it with the ability to impose ad hoc requirements on the use of land not specified anywhere in the ordinances. The result would be the imposition of uncertainty on all landowners respect whether they can safely rely on the permitted uses conferred on their land under the zoning ordinances. Those commissioners that voted to reverse the Planning Commission's decision say there's a clear path to keep clear space in town. I can't believe for 1 minute that Clear Space would start the process all over again and submit a new plan to the Planning Commission, particularly when I hear one of the appellants who said, was quoted, and I'm quoting this, "If they come back with a new application, everyone will see whether it's code compliant." I believe, and the opponents have always said this, we will sit down with the chair of Clear Space and try to reach some agreement on what a code-compliant application would be. So there is no opposition, or the opposition is minimized. So what, the appellants are now acting as the Planning Commission? I just think, I mean, I call on the mayor, of course, Max, you're saying that this is not something we could do, but I call on the mayor to call the question to reconsider this vote. Thank you.
Well, my response would be that I believe this whole topic is improper. I believe that you're trying to re-adjudicate something that's already come to conclusion and decision. And again, as our own attorney said, there's no provision in the code of Rehoboth Beach for reconsideration. So I prefer not to drop it.
Yeah, Mayor, I was going to ask for a point of order because everything that, are we retrying this here today? I mean, everything that Commissioner Coluzzi just referred to is in the 17-page written decision, spelled out very clearly from all angles and all opinions is spelled out very clearly. That's our statement.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Again, I think it's improper, but we have a motion on the floor in a second. Unless they want to withdraw it, we'll call the question. Are there any, do you want to withdraw it? No?
I have a comment also.
Yeah.
I don't know what has changed since we took the vote the last time. No material has been issued or discussions. It's all hearsay in that regard. We were required to vote on the official Planning Commission record, is what we quoted from during the hearing. And bottom line, as their own admission, as written into the official record, the Planning Commission did not receive, they did not review, and they did not approve a code-compliant plan, as is stated in the minutes, which are the official record of the meeting. So I just don't see what has changed, and the reason for this vote is, I think, just grandstanding.
Again,
Thank you.
They received a permit and paid over $300,000 in permit fees. So
We're not discussing
obviously-
the case.
This is not, I don't think this is why we're here today.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call the question and
if
discussion.
if I could, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, this proceeding, and I don't want you guys to go too far, but this proceeding probably should, if you're going to continue to discuss this, which I don't know that it's appropriate, but you should at least stick to the record that was before you, because your job is to review it on the record. So you shouldn't add facts that are outside that record if you're going to continue to discuss it.
Thank you. I'd like to end discussion again because I believe this is improper, but I'm willing to call the question. Commissioner Legree, if you call the motion is to reconsider the decision of the appeal of Clear Space and Rehoboth Spotlight. Commissioner Legree, how do you vote?
I vote no, do not reconsider.
To not reconsider.
If you want my reason, I will give it, but I vote no, and I suspect I shouldn't even be given a reason.
I don't think we need
I
a
just vote
reason,
no.
Max Walton. We don't need a reason at this point, I don't believe. Can you
That'd
confirm?
be correct.
Thank
That
you
is
very
correct.
much.
No
Commissioner
reason
Ed
required on this
Chernowski?
vote.
I vote yes, and because I think when I read the decision and it cites the definition and it cites some of the legal bases which we were acting on, I don't know how some of my colleagues could have come to the conclusion that they did. Arbitrary and capricious, that's a pretty high standard. So I vote yes.
Again, I'm trying not to get rationale in there because I believe it's improper. So simple yes or no answer, I think, is fine. Commissioner Calusi,
I vote yes for reasons already stated.
Commissioner Dick Byrne,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Susan Gay,
I vote no.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett,
I vote no.
and the mayor also votes no, so the motion is, does not carry. Back to the starting point. With that, I seek a motion to approve.
I make a
written
motion to
decision?
approve the draft or the draft written decision.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Ed Stronowski and a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne to approve and adopt the written decision as presented to us. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Stronowski?
I vote no. I believe that some of the citations in the decision cites some legal basis which was not discussed in our conversations during the hearing, and I don't think it truly reflects. I don't think it truly reflects what happened in the meeting, so I vote no.
Thank you. Commissioner Calusi?
I vote no for reasons I stated earlier. I also believe that some commissioners overstepped their role. The standard of review was seeing if the decision by the Planning Commission was arbitrary and capricious.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrne?
I vote no, based on the fact that there are legal citations throughout this summary that were not brought up at the June 30th hearing.
Thank you. Commissioner Susan Gay?
I vote yes. I believe all of the arguments in there were made to us at the time of the hearing.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett?
I vote yes, as I feel that this accurately reflects the hearing that was held.
Commissioner Legree?
I vote yes, the document is accurate.
And the mayor votes yes. If you recall, I voted in favor of some motions, and I voted against some motions. I do think this is an accurate representation of the entire meeting. And with that, the yes votes carry, and the written decision as presented is adopted and approved. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to the next item. Max, you're free to go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to committee reports, and we're going to start off with animal issues. Commissioner Byrne, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, the Animal Issues Committee met recently, discussed one of the topics that I brought up a month or so ago that would be on the agenda, and that is a continuing discussion of the danger and risk of folks leaving their pets in hot vehicles at this time of the year. And the committee agreed that the best way to respond to these dangers and risks was to do some public service announcements and to come up with a poster, and that is all happening. The Communications Department has the poster. It's been promoted out on the city website and other social media. PSA announcements have been made and are being played on Radio Rehoboth. Several of us from the committee recently did an interview on Radio Rehoboth talking about the dangers and the risks of pets in hot cars. And so it's a critical issue this time of the year. About 100 animals die each summer season across the country. We certainly don't want that to happen in the city of Rehoboth Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take public comment at the end of all three committee reports. just so we can make it easier on everybody. With that, we'll go to the Boardwalk and Beach Committee. Commissioner LeGree.
My report is embedded in the packet, and at the mayor's request, we had significant, serious discussions on the placing of the 5G antennas on the west side of the boardwalk, and the committee decided that they would not endorse the 38-foot poles that are being proposed for the west side of the boardwalk. We examined every single node that was presented and discussed it. And one of our members, Allison Stein, had photographs of multiple attachments to 5G poles in Newark. And we've quite frankly worried that we would be setting a precedent which would not be good. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but that's what we believe. All of us watched the Dewey Beach Town Council meeting, and we discussed that at length. And all but one of us watched the workshop, the 2 July workshop, where we discussed it. And we are really behind the idea of hiring a consultant. And we worry about the future. Maybe we'll be hiring more consultants as time goes on, because this is just the beginning of 5G and these poles in our town. And anyway, that was the feeling of the committee. I thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner LeGree, for looking into 5G and wireless. That topic is next on the agenda, anticipated to be next on the agenda at our August workshop meeting. We are diligently looking for a consultant, and we'll have to give you more status report in the future. All righty, thank you. Any questions for Boardwalk?
In reading the report under future discussions, the report reflects we would like to ask the Board of Commissioners for permission to take this subject up, meaning crowding on the boardwalk. As a committee project in the future, we would like to report our findings and recommendations back to the mayor and commissioners. Is that something we need to react to or just be aware of?
We'll probably ask again.
Okay.
And speak and do that again, but it's something that we talked about. I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't want to butt in.
You're good. You're good. Thank you. With that, we'll go to the Wilmington Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Task Force guidelines. Those are embedded in the agenda. I chair that task force that has a total of 16 members on it. If you recall, the project has a certain project limits on first and second blocks of Baltimore, first and second blocks of Wilmington Avenue, and then cross streets, North First and South First and South Second Street. I just want to read you very quickly. The overarching interest of the streetscape improvements is to bring pedestrians and bicyclists and other alternate modes of transportation, such as scooters, et cetera, onto Wilmington and Baltimore avenues, and to include streetscape elements that will attract that kind of traffic, including bicycle parking, landscape sitting areas, landscaping, benches, lighting, et cetera. These guidelines, again, are embedded in the agenda. They include things, guidelines that we gave to our design engineering consultant to look as they develop new streetscape designs for the project area. One of the guidelines is to use shared bike lanes versus designated bike lanes. There's quite a difference there in the width required of regular lanes versus shared lanes with sharrows. So the committee said use shared lanes. We specified some minimum traffic lane widths. We specified the treatment of the easterly ends of Baltimore and Wilmington act as gateways and be designed as gateways to help attract people off the boardwalk onto those streets, et cetera. But again, you all can read those embedded in the agenda. Our schedule for coming up is the next task force meeting is Wednesday at 9 a.m., July 28th. And then we have backup dates of August 4th and August 11th, if needed, to look at the first iteration of design concepts coming from Rossi. Now, these design concepts are looking at suggested layout for traffic lanes, for sidewalks, et cetera. This is not the time, we're not at the point where we're talking about all the amenities and what kind of street light we're going to have and what kind of benches and all that. That's in the future. We know that there will be benches and freestanding lights and those things. And those are designated in the original concept that'll be presented to us. But again, the actual design selection will come at a later date. And then a public workshop is anticipated September 29th, where we will hopefully refine some of these design concepts. And we want to offer the opportunity for the public to come in and look at large-scale drawings and be able to give their comment, just like a typical DelDOT transportation workshop project. So we'll do that. Are there any questions?
Have you decided yet when you'll start talking about undergrounding or utility placement, anything like that?
Well, we've hired undergrounding consultant because Rossi, our design consultant that we hired for the Streetscape project, it's not in their scope and it's not in their expertise. So we have hired somebody and we would expect in the next month probably, or certainly before the public workshop, and maybe earlier, would be giving us more details.
Thank you.
So some of the concepts that are being presented to us by Rossi show the potential for surface-mounted transformers instead of aerial transformers, but they're all guesses. So stand by. Anybody else? If not, open it to the members of the public. Dr. Trejos, are you on yet?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd just be brief. I believe much of what you've already discussed will be discussed in the workshop meetings. I just wanted to dovetail Commissioner Legree's comment with regard to the hiring of a wireless consultant. I believe that to be paramount. It is my understanding, and Commissioner Legree, you could assist me in this, that CTC Net was hired, I believe, by Dewey Beach.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct,
What the Board of Commissioners may want to strongly consider is that wireless communications facilities are going to be seamless up and down the coast, i.e. seamless amongst municipalities. I would probably strongly recommend you considering hiring CTC Net as your telecom consultant, because if they are already working with Dewey, then it would be a seamless concept in terms of how RF systems would be laid out between the two locations. And I think it would be a handshake type protocol. So I would probably strongly recommend that you consider hiring them. That's number one. Number two, and as I believe I had stated in the May meeting, I had also raised the consideration that because of 5G currently and future 6G, you may want to strongly consider implementing or creating a wireless telecommunications committee, again, made up of individuals who are residents within zip code 19971, who have taken examination and are licensed by the Federal Communications Commission and have the appropriate expertise to be able to sit on a committee such as that can in turn accept the shall we say, engineering and aspects of the consultant information, filter through it, vet it, and make sure that it is appropriate, and then have it presented to the Board of Commissioners. It is just, again, a consideration which I strongly believe should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trejos. Are you signing out, or do you have other topics that you're interested in?
No, I have no other topics that I'm interested in right at this moment, but I will probably stay online, but I have no other topics at this time.
All right. I'm not going to call on you again, so if you want to say something, then you'll need to speak up. Thank you, Doctor. With that, we're going to go to, is there anybody else wants to speak up on the committees? If not, then we'll go to Liaison Reports. For the Chamber of Commerce, is Susan or Carol or Dale going to say anything?
And Carol is not here, and I don't have any updates from her. I don't know if Dale has anything he wants to add, so.
Right,
Okay.
very good. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the Historical Society. The liaison is Commissioner Jay Legree.
I have nothing other than things are going great this summer at the museum.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll go to Main Street. Commissioner Ed Stranowski is the liaison of Main
We've got,
Street.
President Greer Manival and Dan Slagle here.
Very good. Why don't you step up to the lectern there so we can get you all on camera.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just reintroduce yourself if you would.
My name is Dan Slagle, Executive Director, Rehoboth Beach Main Street. I'm sorry, there you go.
And my name's Greer Manival, and I'm president of the board.
So, good afternoon, Commissioners, City Manager, and Mayor. Just want to talk about a few things that Main Street is working on right now. And so we're very proud. We've actually started a Patience and Understanding campaign. And we're distributing posters across the city. This is what it looks like right here. We're very proud of it. So it's a print, and it's also our social media campaign. It's been launched, and we're distributing posters again downtown to merchants and via the internet for safety and well-being of everyone. Rehoboth Beach Main Street is strongly promoting patience and understanding with the kickoff of our 2021 Respect Rehoboth campaign. The objective of this campaign is to create awareness of staffing challenges and our merchants are experiencing, and because many merchants, sales associates, staff members are working long hours and double shifts, as you are aware, most businesses continue experiencing hiring challenges and are asking for patience while they seek increase in staffing. So this is why we came up with this campaign, and we're very proud of it. So I just want to let you know that's something that we're working with. Also, our BMS newsletter will be out in August. Our newsletter is getting a lot of attention. We're very pleased. We feel it's very informative, and we're sending it out through an email blast to all the businesses downtown and to the residents, and also to the commissioners and mayor. Also, with back to the Now Hiring campaign, it is also, we're on our website, social media, Facebook, Instagram. We are creating a special page on our website to promote potential employment for downtown. So a lot of the merchants can go onto this site and actually tell us what they need. Kitchen help, retail. So we're actually creating that page for them.
We're trying to create a bulletin board so that people can start to talk to each other and let us sort of help get people together.
Also, we're working towards our Oktoberfest. It's upcoming events. Oktoberfest 2021 is Saturday, September 25th from 2 to 7 here at the Convention Center. It is a family fun event. It is a German fest, so we're really excited about this being the first year for that. And we're working diligently to get most all the merchants signed up as much as we can. Also, you'll see the banners along Rehoboth Avenue. It is completed. They've all been installed. So we think they've turned out really nice. Also, Rehoboth and Bloom, we're working highlights called Reefs Across America program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that Rehoboth and Bloom is working on. Each December on National Reefs Across America Day, our mission is to remember, honor, and teach. It's carried out by coordinating reef laying ceremonies at the Arlington National Cemetery, as well as more than 2,100 additional locations in all 50 U.S. states, sea, and abroad. Our committee is working on contacting future on-site grave sites here in Rehoboth to actually bring that to this area. So we're excited about that. Also, we're promoting the Oldies Dance. It's also going to be at the Convention Center in the fall, November 19th, and it's from 7 to 10. And do you have anything else, Dan? Also, we're also getting our downtown guidebook out, which has coupons. We're distributing them all over town, and we also have news racks, so we're really proud of our guidebook because of the coupons, and there's a lot of information in here. Any questions?
I just want to thank you. You've done a lot to beautify the town with the banners, the Rehoboth in Bloom, with your planters in the pedestrian ways. You've been very active, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we've gotten a tremendous amount of notoriety about all the planters and working with the city. And I think that's wonderful from cities all over the country, which is amazing when you see it on the internet.
And Main Street wants to thank the city, too. You've made it possible with your donation for Rehoboth and Main Street to be able to, have all these different campaigns. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Greer?
Questions?
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Legree?
Something else you've done that people don't talk about. You've given Paul Lovett a space to work on the diorama, which is one of the most incredible assets of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Every time I see it, I'm just blown away. And you don't publicize that, but I'm so proud of you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. And again, it's a wonderful thing to give back to the city and to show the history, which is such a big part that sometimes we forget about when we get tied up with the things that are going on every moment of the day. And to have that history be really a part of what Main Street is all about is such a big thing. So thank you for acknowledging it.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the Cape and Open Senior Center. Liaison is Commissioner Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Cape and Open Senior Center continues to increase the number of classes, activities, and bus trips as we move further into the post-COVID environment. And the board at the Cape and Open Senior Center wants to send their thanks to the mayor and commissioners and the city manager and her team for supporting parking places there for the membership from 10 a.m. to 2. And they've reported recently that so far it's working out real well. They're surprised that it is working out so well, and but they wanted to send the compliment
Thank you.
to you, City Manager.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we'll go to the next item of business, which is a permit of compliance hearing, request by India's Restaurant LLC to modify the permit of compliance for the restaurant known as Indigo to allow serving of liquor as well as beer and wine pursuant to Chapter 215 Restaurants of the City Code. The restaurant is located at 44 Rehoboth Avenue. We have two representatives here, Mr. Hal Dukes and Mr. Kumar, one of the owners. Yes, please take a seat there. Before we begin, this is an unusual case, and I'd like to give a little preface, if you don't mind, in that this is unique in that some years ago, maybe for dough roller or something, they were issued a permit of compliance to be able to serve liquor as a prerequisite to go into the state to get their state liquor license. And somehow, and I think I was a commissioner at that time, somehow we gave them a partial liquor classification for beer and wine only, not liquor. And in my mind, I don't ever want to do that again. And so I want to ask Glenn to look into it if we need to codify it or whatever. To me, it should all be one thing. Coming in front of us, you either get to serve liquor or you don't, and then when you go to the state liquor board, then you can argue or file for what kind of liquor license that you want. So again, I don't want to do this again. I'm sorry you had to come in here for that. And because of that, I told the city manager to waive the $1,000 fee because again, I hope that this doesn't happen again. So unfortunately, though, because the process is what it is, we've got to go through an entire permanent compliance hearing only to change for their ability to also serve liquor in addition to beer and wine. So again, I'm sorry about that. So Matt, take it away if you would, and we'll conduct our normal.
May I go ahead and put some things on the record first, Mayor? And
Yes.
then we'll go to Matt. Thank you. And good setup. I think that's an accurate portrayal of the background on this one. So in your packets, Commissioners, you should have a permit of compliant application. It was signed on June 1, 2021. You should have a building inspector's report that Matt's about ready to give. It's dated June 24, 2021. There's a restaurant floor plan identified as sheet A1, dated March 25, 2017. It's actually titled a demolition and removal plan. There's also correspondence from Mr. Harold Dukes, Esquire, dated June 1st, 2021. Marked received by the city on June 4th, 2021. There's second correspondence from Mr. Dukes dated April 20, 2021. And there's correspondence dated March 28, 2017 from City Manager Sharon Lynn concerning the administrative transfer of the liquor license that occurred back in 2017. This is a hearing, though, Commissioners, and as we've talked about before, there's certain things you're supposed to consider as you go through the hearing process, albeit this one's much different than other permits of compliance that you've done in the past. This isn't a new one. This is really just an expansion of what's already been granted. But nevertheless, it's City Code Section 215-5B. It says that a permanent compliance or a supplemental permanent compliance shall not be issued to the applicant or the Delaware Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission except by the favorable vote of a majority of the members of the city commissioners. In reaching their decision, the commissioners shall consider the following factors, including but not limited to: first, whether the applicant has demonstrated that the establishment's primary purpose will be that of a restaurant or dinner theater as defined in this chapter. Second, whether the establishment meets all of the city's applicable zoning and licensing provisions. Third, whether the establishment would be a detriment to the peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood and the city. Fourth, whether the establishment will have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties or on the city of Rehoboth Beach, considering the impact on traffic, parking, and noise. And fifth, whether the applicant had made any false representation or statements to the city's employees or the commissioners in order to induce or prevent action by the city, not only in regard to the pertinent pending application under this chapter, but also in regard to the issuance of a building permit or business license for the subject establishment. So those are the factors that you're required to consider, commissioners. Thank you for that, Mayor. And I didn't reference the public notice. There is a public notice as well. It was posted in the Cape Gazette on Tuesday, June 29, 2021, in the Coast Press on Wednesday, July 7th, 2021, in the Delaware State News on Thursday, July 1, 2021. It was also provided to residents within 200 feet of the establishment. Thank you for that.
Very good. Thank you, Glenn. And with that, we'll go to Building Inspector Matthew Janis, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you so eloquently described, this is an unfortunate incident, and I didn't feel that it warranted a full building inspector's report. As such, I just prepared a memorandum, and I did conduct an on-site investigation to verify that the application was consistent with what was approved before. I'll just read this memorandum to you. Please be advised that I have completed an on-site inspection and verification of the seating and general layout of 44 Rehoboth Avenue, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, known as Indigo Restaurant, for a modification of the permit of compliance. The modification is requested to allow the business to serve liquor as well as beer and wine. A previously approved application was for sale of beer and wine only. Upon inspection, I have found that ownership has not changed hands and that the current seating arrangement does not differ from previously approved permit of compliance. Hours of operation are listed as Monday through Sunday, 11:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Total revenue of services is listed as 2% or 20% alcohol and 80% food sales. All facility square footages remain the same as previous, and no additional space is being added or removed.
Very good. Does the applicant want to say anything? You don't need to.
I wanted,
But you're welcome.
for the record, I wanted my client to be able to explain how the operation goes, just so you have something on the public record. It's one of the better restaurants in Rehoboth, and he's very proud of the operation. And he's spent a lot of time and money to get here, so I'd like him to say a few things. And for efficiency purposes, that'll be the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, with the full liquor license, we might have some more business. And many times people make reservations, and then they inquire about it later on. Oh, do you have full liquor license? And sometimes we lose that clientele. And sometimes small parties, they don't come because of we can't provide cocktails. So I think that will be very helpful to us, yeah, if you please.
Very good.
We've already been approved by state level.
Very good.
Any questions, folks? I'll let you.
This is a public hearing, but before we go to the public, is there any comment by the commissioners? Seems fairly straightforward. With that, we'll go to members of the public. Is there anybody who wants to speak in for or against? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this meeting and entertain a motion to grant a restaurant permit of compliance.
Mayor, I find the following to be true: that the proper application for a restaurant permit of compliance has been filed, that the proper fee has been paid, that the proper notifications have been made, that all parties wishing to be heard have been heard, that the primary purpose of that is that of a restaurant, that the restaurant meets the city's applicable zoning and licensing provisions, that the restaurant would not be a deterrent, a detriment, to the peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood and the city, that the restaurant will not have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties or on the City of Rehoboth Beach, considering the impact on traffic, parking, and noise. That the applicant has made no false statements to the city employees or the commissioners. Therefore, I make a motion that the city manager issue the applicants a permit of compliance for the operation of a restaurant known as Indigo, located at 44 Rehoboth Avenue, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Second.
Let me ask the city solicitor, there's no mention in here of a full liquor license. We're trying to resolve what they came here for. Do we need to say anything specific?
I don't think so. The record is clear that the reason they're here is for an expansion to include full spirits now. So I think the minutes of this and the recording will be sufficient for that. But if you want to amend the motion just to say full liquor service, that's fine with me as well.
I would, I think that's reflected in the application, but I would say that this would be specific, that they would now be able to serve a full liquor license, beer, wine, and alcohol, with no off-premise applications.
And who seconded it? Commissioner LeGray, you second that amendment?
I second.
All righty. So we have a motion by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Jay LeGray to authorize the issuance of a permit of compliance for full service of alcohol at this restaurant location. All those in favor, is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and the motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you. And you need not stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want
I
to.
look forward to beginning there.
Thank you, Mr. Dukes. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you. Yes, sir.
And Mayor, I just want to say that I think it's an excellent idea to change the process so that we don't have
Yeah.
to, that we combine them in the future is an excellent
Well,
idea. Thank you.
Just to be clear, the motion we just made is inherently includes everything, all liquor and spirits
Just
and
said
wine.
As much authority as this body has to say yes, you've just said yes. So yes, full spirits, wine, beer.
And that's our normal course of action.
Correct.
However long ago, we went out of the normal course to do whatever they did.
That's right.
With just beer and wine. Okay.
And what did that result from? Probably from the applicant limiting themselves, and we just acted on it. So you understand, we don't want to do that anymore. Very good, thank you very much. With that, we're going to skip down, as I mentioned earlier, to old business, number 13C. Consider two ordinances to amend Chapter 92, Automobiles, Vehicles, and Traffic of the Municipal Code. We'll take these in order. First, we're going to be looking at Section 92-1, terms defined, and 92-240, definitions relating to the definition of motorized skateboard or scooter. Chief, I believe you're sponsoring this topic. If we could hear from you, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and the general public. Thank you. This topic I brought up at last month's workshop. It should be real easy, but the Alderman's Court and the Police Department have identified a need to amend Code 92-1, terms defined, and 92-240, definitions relating to motorized skateboards or scooters. Specifically, when we're looking at motorized skateboard or scooter, it talks about any device that is designed to travel on at least two wheels. Thus, the issue we're dealing with. Ann, can we bring this up on screen or now? If not, I can hold it up.
It's our electronics and here, unfortunately, don't allow for remote participation and use of the overheads.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so what we're seeing around town on the boardwalk is a motorized scooter, just a one-wheel axle, so we're trying to just amend our code so to reflect that so we can enforce it, because otherwise, right now, they are on a boardwalk around town where we don't let other scooters or skateboards at. So this is what this amendment, what we're here today for, is just to amend that, and it would just say that may have as few as one wheel versus the two.
Do you want to read this, or?
I'd be happy to. So the previous language referenced scooters as something that has at least two wheels. This obviously does not have at least two wheels, and it also referenced having handlebars. This does not have handlebars. So what it will do is it'll change the following. Any device that is designed to travel on, it used to be at least two wheels, now it says one or more wheels, with the deck or chassis of such device open and close to the ground that has, and has been stricken and now replaced with may or may not have handlebars or hand-controlled throttle or brake that is designed to be stood up or sat upon by the operator, and that is powered by a motor that is capable of propelling the device without human propulsion. Motorized skateboard or scooter shall not include any automobile or device that is included within the definition of moped, motorcycle, off-highway vehicle, any type of tractor, triped, motorized wheelchair, or electric personal assistive mobility device set forth in this chapter. So it makes those two little changes from at least 2 wheels to 1 or more wheels, and from has to may or may not have. And that occurs 2 places in the code, and it's been changed in both those places, section 92-1 and section 92-240.
Is there any discussion before we go to the public?
I have a question.
Commissioner Calusi?
So skateboards aren't allowed on sidewalks, right? That's part of, right, Chief?
Correct, during certain times of the year and certain streets with that, yes. It's the Boardwalk, Rehoboth Avenue, and First, Second Street.
So with those, I guess are they called hoverboards? They're not allowed on the sidewalk either. Is that somehow included in what we've been talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right.
So, any type of e-scooter, that's
Correct.
included as well? Okay.
Any other questions from our discussion from the commissioners? If not, we'll go to the members of the public. Is there anybody out there that wants to say anything? Seeing no? Oh, yes, Walter, please.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. I fully suggest this. He hasn't been very forthcoming, as I've been complaining to him about, that the fact that they couldn't enforce this because they didn't have the tool to do it. So it would really benefit the whole city to get this passed. And then once he gets it passed, then he needs the manpower, person power, female power to go out there and enforce it. So you give him the first part. I don't know whether at this point in time you can expect everybody or anybody to be stopped, but you got to give them the tools to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Chief, I assume that you're going to work with the Director of Communications to have some sort of communication outreach plan on this.
That is correct, yes.
And as usual, you'll be give warnings out in the beginning before being strict on the citations.
Yes, very few skateboards and things are given citations at first. We're constantly trying to just educate the public, give them a warning, and give them a fair chance to correct what they've done.
This makes sense and is pretty straightforward.
So the skateboards, they do have to use the rules of the road as bicycles do, right? Because they're in the street?
The skateboards are not supposed to be, longboards included, should not be on Rehoboth Avenue at all. They're against the rules.
Okay, well,
So, yes, they're out there, and a lot of times the argument is, as far as not get off topic, but the longboards that you see, they say, well, it's my only transportation back and forth to work and all, but no, they should not be on the sidewalk or the roadway at all.
okay.
But yes, if they're going to be there and we don't want them there and it is against the law, they should be going the same direction as the flow of traffic. Sort of. The problem is you don't want them out there because you just can't be seen, and it's not certain to not be there.
Mayor, I'd move to adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 92, Automobiles, Vehicles, and Traffic of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, Section 92-1, Terms Defined, and Section 92-240, Definitions, relating to the definition of motorized skateboard or scooter.
Second.
We have a motion by Ed Tranowski and a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne to adopt amendments to Section 92-1 and 92-240. I would like to make note that this is the version in front of us, is dated July 2nd. And with that, I'll just do a group vote. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and the motion is carried unanimously. Chief, thank you very much for bringing this forward to us.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the next item, number 2 of 2, is looking at amending Section 92-42, parking for electric vehicles relating to the deletion of an addition of parking spaces for electric vehicles. We don't have Evan here. Does anybody?
No, Mayor, but this is just a continuation for your consideration for the commissioners to adopt this, because we did add the 4 parking spots for the electric vehicle charging stations.
All right, thank you. If you recall, we had originally, I think, 2 electric charging stations over at the Henlopen and in partnership with the University of Delaware, I believe. And now those are defunct. They're going to be removed. And instead we have not 2, but 4 new electric vehicle charging stations right out here in the parking lot up near the breakers. And to relocate them there, we had to change the city code to identify not 2, but 4 parking spaces. Re-identify them as no longer on Surfside Place, but in the Convention Center parking lot, that these spaces, just like the other ones, shall be posted as electric vehicle parking spaces and shall remain in effect continuously. And new language is, in addition to the parking meter fees established in 9273, an additional fee of $1 per hour will be charged for the cost of energy and will remain in effect continuously. So with that, would like to see if there's any discussion, and I'd like to go to the public before we make a motion. Any?
Just one question. I know when Mr. Miller was here last time to discuss this, there was a discussion about the dollar fee of collection and done through an app, and they were still kind of working through that of how we would actually collect the funds, and it was like an 80-20 split or something of that nature. Has that all been resolved?
I don't believe it. Okay, it has been.
That's how good your staff is.
That's correct. That has been worked out. It's a 90-10, so all the fees go to ChargePoint. ChargePoint writes us a check once a month for fees that are collected, and there's reports. We have real-time data on who's using it, when they're using it, how long they're using it, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But Kevin, tell me how exactly this works. An electric vehicle pulls into the parking space. Do they go to our parking meter and pay, and then put a tab in the windshield? And then how do they pay? They have a second step?
Correct.
To pay
Mayor,
for the electrics?
Yeah, right. They pull into the spot. They can either do their charge thing first, or they can go get their parking permit from us, go to pay station, get the thing, put it on their dashboard. Then there's an app, ChargePoint app. They go right there and it says which station they're at. Boom, they plug it in. The fee starts automatically.
Two-step process?
Two-step.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. If that, no further questions up here, we'll go to the public. Anybody like to say anything? If not, I would entertain a motion to amend the 9242 as presented to us.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Calusi and a second by Commissioner Susan Gay to amend Section 92-42 relating to parking for electric vehicles and related fees. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And the motion's carried unanimously. Sharon, thank you for bringing this forward to us. We appreciate it. And those meters, I understand, are functional at this point.
They're functional and they're being used.
And being used, very good. With that, our next item of business is consideration of appointment of Julie Davis to fill the seat on the Planning Commission vacated by Brian Patterson. At whatever point is somebody makes a motion, it would be to appoint Julie Davis to fill the unexpired term of Brian Patterson ending in 2023. I would like to note that her application was distributed in full to all the commissioners here. I would also like to make note, actually a couple notes, and that is at the April workshop, you'll recall I first nominated Julie, April 2021. I nominated Julie, and everybody up here was complimentary of her being nominated. There were good comments on it, and the Planning Commission chair, if you recall, I mentioned during that meeting, was also complimentary and anxious to get Julie on board. If you recall, after that, for the April regular meeting, I had consideration or voting to appoint Julie on there, and I withdrew it. I never gave an explanation, but I withdrew it because I was threatened that if I followed through on it, that people would come after me. To try to keep harmony, I withdrew her name, and I'm very sorry I did. The Planning Commission chair was very disappointed because he wanted the space filled, and again, he was very complimentary of Julie. Again, I'm sorry I did that because frankly, I believe we lost 3 months with Julie being able to participate on non-clear space things, of course. 330 Rehoboth Avenue, when one comes to mind. Bellhaven Hotel comes to mind, and there's other partitionings that have come up. In the meantime, I got another threat today that says Stan Mills is nominating a clear space appellant to the Planning Commission. Julie Davis is a clear space appellant and also was an appellant on a land rights issue involving a tree with Commissioner Gay recently. Appointing Ms. Davis is a clear conflict of interest violation. She cannot be objective. This action cannot happen, or this will be reported to the PIC, which is the Public Integrity Commission against Mills, who sets the agenda. And then there was a follow-up later today that says from the same person charging that, in fact, James Ellison, who is also an appellant, was nominated by Mills. Please, this is clearly a PIC issue. Take Planning Commission appointments off the agenda and remove Jim Ellison from the Planning Commission. Well, I certainly don't intend to do that. I think Jim's been serving us very well on that Planning Commission. And again, I intend and hope that somebody will make a motion to appoint Julie Davis to fill the unexpired term of Brian Patterson ending in 2023, because I think she would be very valuable to that committee or commission. And also in checking again with the Planning Commission chair, he was still very complimentary and still desirous of filling that seat with Julie Davis.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to appoint Julie Davis to the unexpired term on the Planning Commission, which ends in 2023.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Patrick Gossett and a second by Commissioner Gay. Is there any discussion?
Sure, Mayor. I'll state that, like I did a couple months ago, I think it's inappropriate at this time, and I think it shows how disingenuous some of my colleagues are in outlining a path forward for clear space and a speedy one, appointing an appellant to the Planning Commission at this time when the issue is not resolved.
Well, yeah, putting anybody on there, they have to look at each individual case that comes in front of themselves and make a decision whether they are to recuse or participate. Again, I'm fine with Julie being on there. Is there any further discussion here before I go to the public? Is there any members of the public that want to say anything? Oh.
She has deep experience in the matters that she will be dealing with in the Planning Commission. Reading her application is just very impressive, and you couldn't pick a better person for the Planning Commission. So I guess you have an idea how I'll vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members of the public, go ahead. Just remember to state your name and affiliation with the town, please.
Good afternoon. Richard Perry, 46 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm a full-time resident and voter here. I think your nomination of Julie Davis is very unfortunate, and someone probably should have objected to Jim Ellison being appointed as well. And I think bringing this second nomination up immediately after the decision made last Wednesday by this Board of Commissioners clearly demonstrates, Mr. Mayor, your bias towards this matter. And I don't think is serving the city well to keep appointing people who have been fighting against an applicant and putting them in the position knowing full well that they may have to consider this matter again on the Planning Commission. Whether or not Ms. Davis recuses herself, whether or not Mr. Ellison recuses himself, your nomination sends a message to the other planning commissioners as to how you want this matter to be resolved. And I don't think it's appropriate at all to be doing this at this time.
And, something has been bothering me about these appointments to the Planning Commission recently that you've been making, Mr. Mayor. You reappointed a planning commissioner, and I believe you knew well that she intended to stay only until she had an opportunity to vote on the clear space applications. I don't know why on God's earth you would make such an appointment. That, taken in conjunction with these other two nominations and the one you're trying to push through today, certainly says a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? If not, we'll call the question. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Commissioner I want to get my notes here. Commissioner Cluzy, again, this is to appoint Julie Davis to fill the unexpired term of Brian Patterson ending 2021. Commissioner Cluzy.
I vote no. I think this is just the wrong time for this, and also for the reasons stated by Commissioner Chernowski earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrne?
I vote in favor of Julie Davis. Julie Davis, that I know, will make appropriate decisions as to when to recuse herself in the future on important issues that come before the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
I vote yes, and I think I was glad to hear you say, and I know from my own conversations with the chair of the PC that he is strongly in favor of Julie joining the Plan Commission, and now you are strongly in favor of it. And I think this shows the very kind of unity that we desperately need right now, and she will be excellent, and she is very knowledgeable of our code, and she has had prior experience on serving the city in an appointment made by former Mayor Coons to the Law Oversight Committee. So a well-rounded candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
I vote yes on the appointment, and I feel many things have been stated here today about Ms. Davis's qualifications, her background, her experience in past municipal activities in Montgomery County, and also her activities here on committees within Rehoboth. I think it'll be a great addition, and I'm glad to hear that the chairman of the Planning Commission is also very supportive of this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree, please.
I vote yes for the reasons that I stated earlier.
Thank you. Commissioner Chernowski?
Mayor, I abstain. I think Julie Davis has incredible qualifications, but I think the optics of it and the timing is just, it sends a bad signal to our community, given what we've decided last week.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the chair votes yes to appoint Julie Davis. Thank you very much. And so with that, she is a new member of the Planning Commission, effective immediately. With that, we'll go to the next item of business, which is new business 14A. Consider authorizing the transfer of Canal Bank lease currently in place between the United States Army Corps of Engineers and the Rehoboth Beach Museum from the museum to the city of Rehoboth Beach. Who wants to take it? Glenn?
I'm happy to give some background.
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
sure, Mr. Mayor. So, as you know, the dock is done. It's opened, and the city has issued a couple RFPs for certain vendors to use the dock. In connection with that process, some questions were asked up here about the status of the lease documents and other related documents, and we'd spent some time looking into those and realized that the lease for that area of land is between the Rehoboth Historical Museum and the Army Corps of Engineers. So the Historical Museum really had all the responsibility, all the liability, and everything else relating to the dock. So we thought it appropriate that that lease be transferred to the city so that the city would then have responsibility for the operation and maintenance of it, that the liability would not rest with the Rehoboth Historical Society any longer, and that we'd be able to move forward with the RFPs that had been let and issue the contracts at some point. So Kevin Williams went to work with the Army Corps because he's got a history in that world and has people he knows and could move things along. We received the new lease just yesterday morning, I think is when we got it. And the Rehoboth Historical Society has reviewed it. They have approved it. I reviewed it. There's some grammatical things that I'd like to have changed. Nothing substantive that would be changing. The one paragraph that is not in the lease right now that we worked on today that will go in the lease is just a paragraph that makes clear that the current lease with the Historical Society is being terminated, and this will be the new lease. There was a question as to whether we have two leases hanging out there. So that paragraph's going to get added that will terminate the current lease with the Historical Society. Are there any questions for me? I mean, I've got the list of the grammatical things that I'm going to have changed, if you want to go through them.
A couple questions, but the first off, in extinguishing the lease with the Historical Society, will they then become a signer of this lease to acknowledge that, or how?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to add a signature block for them, and because of this paragraph that we're adding, and yeah.
Okay.
And we've already discussed that with them.
Thank you. And just some other things. I'm sure you know the date is incorrect.
Yes, saw that.
In there. And then also it mentions Exhibit D, as in David. I don't see an Exhibit D.
D changed, Kev, to C now. Yeah, D is actually, they said D, that's incorrect. It should be C.
And that's here?
It's here, yes.
Right, and then there's also quite a bit of reporting that is under Development of Plans, point 5 on page 2. And it says, no later than July 15th of each year, the leasee will submit an annual plan to be mutually agreed upon between the leasee and the district engineer. Such annual plan shall include but not limited, and it goes through 7 points of that. Do we have, or will we have, bandwidth, if you will, in place to accomplish that on an annual basis? And again, it references Exhibit D, which is now Exhibit C, is that
Right,
correct?
that's correct.
And the Exhibit C is just a plan of the dock. So I don't know what plans we could change or react to those items A through G on point 5 under development plans.
Kev, do you have history with this that you can address how that typically is conducted?
Right, so I think the reporting requirements would be to, if we have a contract with, company A that's gonna dock their boat there to pick up the evening cruise, or we're doing yacht, kayaks or whatever, we would be able to provide that as the kind of the documentation of what the operation is. The plan was already developed, in the earlier lease, which is where they got the Exhibit D. It was D in the previous lease. Which is that sketch of they're going to have a dock down there and operate it as a dock. So the plan would be once a year we send them a memo that says, yep, we have this contract going on with so-and-so, and it's this amount of money. And then the check would be that those contracts don't bring in more money than we spend on the operation and maintenance, our internal work of operating maintenance. And I think that's the rub, is if you're going to make more money than it's costing you to operate it, then you get into the whole large-scale agreement with operating a facility on the core property. But that, certainly I don't think we'll get anywhere near that with the leases or the contracts we're going to have for operations out of the dock.
That is described elsewhere in the contract, but under development plan specifically, it says an annual report, and that really doesn't address anything that you just mentioned. It talks about further development of the aspect. Again, I'm just asking if we have the staff. I'm sure our staff is capable of doing this, but putting something in place that makes sure we honor the lease that we sign and supply no later than July 15th of each year, a comprehensive report on those items.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah, I have that marked as well. I mean, I think probably once we get through the first 1, 2, 3 years, the plan is going to be very similar every year thereafter.
And it also states on point 9, facilities and services. Again, leasee shall provide facilities and services agreed upon development plan, referred to the condition on development plans, either directly or through subleases or concessions agreements that have been reviewed and accepted by the district engineer. Who is the district engineer, and where does that come into play?
So we've been working on that through this process. They're
Okay.
well aware of our expectation that we're going to have these 2 RFPs, but that's part of the process. I've got it highlighted also that it's something that has to happen. Yep.
And then the same thing on fees and
Yep.
point 11?
Yep.
Okay. And on point 36, page 9, Executive Order 13658, it says any references to the section to prime contractor or contractor shall mean insert here. So whatever it has to be inserted there, I guess is appropriate. And then also there's extensive language in here about minimum wages. And each worker, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd be curious to know if you can define for us, does that apply to our subcontractors or our concessionaires, or how does that work?
This language, Commissioner, was not in the previous lease for a nonprofit. Nonprofits didn't have to deal with this, but because we're a municipal government, we did have to have this language. So if we let a contract there, a federal contract, any federal employees are subject to these executive orders, and we'd have to pay wages consistent with those orders.
Okay.
The expectation is we'll probably never have to do it, but it's part of the agreement.
That would not apply to anybody except a federal contract, is that right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. And
I think it would also apply if we got federal money.
That's correct as well. If we're using federal money.
If we're using federal money and we were going to use that money to hire or do something, then we would have to pay that individual.
That's a better explanation. If it's federal dollars we're using, we got it. Yeah.
And that was one of my questions. We didn't have any federal funds on the grant for money for building the dock, did we?
No.
Okay, they were all state funds, yeah.
all state funds. So you will then also correct Exhibit D and C and all that good stuff?
Yep, that's on my list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that we wanted to bring this forward because it's been, Director of Public Works has been in contact with the Army Corps, as you know, for several weeks since the beginning of June, and it is July 16th, so we wanted to bring this forward. We'll continue working on it, and the other two matters of old business, I would hope that you would consider them contingent based on just getting this in line here.
There was also comment, though, about the fee collection and how is that used? Was that with what?
Right, so Kevin and I have spoken about it, I was the city manager as well, that provision in the contract was in the previous contract, and we flagged it last time. It basically says if you're going to be charging a vendor or raising any sort of fee for use of the dock, those monies have to be segregated and used back in the dock project. And if they're not using the dock project, then they got to be sent off to the district engineer, or if you have excess that wasn't used, then that has to be sent off, so that we're aware of that one as well. But as Kevin's comment
I think Kevin articulated that pretty well.
Yeah, and Kevin's view, and I think he's right, is that probably whatever money the city makes off of these RFPs, we'll be spending more on the maintenance of the dock. So
Certainly, no question about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Glenn, under indemnity and hold harmless, it says that any contractor will also release any claims. And how do we consider the vendors that will be operating there? Will we have them list, or in our contracts with them or agreement, they will also indemnify and hold harmless the United States government or Army Corps of Engineers?
are you looking at paragraph 28 or one of the earlier paragraphs?
That's 28.
28 only applies to Executive Order 13658, which is the minimum wage item. So if we had,
But I'm assuming it says the same thing under just general indemnity and hold harmless. I haven't reviewed the whole thing, given we got it late last night.
I will look at that, Commissioner, to be sure that whatever, I'm looking for it now, but the contractors are required to have insurance, and that's set out in Section 16. I don't recall whether it says that the contractors have to give some sort of indemnity to the United States government or not, but I'll take that as a note to follow up.
The insurance requirement is pretty low, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think ours is going to be higher than that, typically, yeah.
I'm otherwise fine with it.
I have a couple of things. First of all, and I had missed that the Exhibit D, I was looking for that as well, but if that's supposed to be a list of the development plans and these A through G items that Commissioner Gossett mentioned, I understand they may not change every year, but we start with a document that's the development plans that addresses all these elements, right? And so I don't see that. I mean, is that something that's being worked on? Development plan document?
Yeah, I think with the lateness of this document and us, continuing to work on it, yes.
All right. And the other thing I wonder is, this is annual. Does that mean that our contracts with third parties with the water tax and all are also have to be annual contracts? Or I couldn't remember if they were. I thought some of them were requesting a several-year contract.
So I think they are multi-year contracts, but the agreement with the vendors, though, is if this expires somehow and we're no longer able to operate a dock, then their agreement expires as well. So all this, although this is annual and theirs are multi-year, theirs are contingent on this one being in place.
Okay, so it's okay that that this has to be on an annual basis, but those are more than annual?
Yes.
Okay. The other place, just I'm sort of skipping ahead, but under 21A, it talks about licensees must have the full knowledge of lease requirements. So does that mean that the vendors that we contract with will need a copy or will need all of this information as well? It says that they have to be aware of all requirements of the lease.
So I thought that through a little bit too. We'll probably give them a copy of our lease with highlighted everything that they have to be compliant with.
Okay. And the other thing, in number 9, it actually says that third-party activities have to be approved by the district engineer. So does the Army Corps have to approve our vendors?
Yes, and that's part of what Kevin and I have been working on with the district engineer.
Okay. And then
We
lastly...
don't talk directly to the district engineer. We talk with his people, and then
Right.
they tell you.
Yeah, okay. And then lastly, there's a clause in here that talks about being available for the full use by the public. And I guess I wonder, because we've talked before about the fact that there are these 2 slips and and some of the bigger boats, the pontoon boats that come in would be taking it up for a period of time. Is that all okay? I mean, it's not technically 100% open to the public if it's being used on a contract basis by a commercial provider.
So we vetted that as well, and a portion of the dock will always be available, depending on who's showing up when. But as far as those vendors we're using, because it was a publicly let contract, that doesn't violate this section.
Okay. That's all I have here. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Glenn, entertain what the motion might be, such as authorize the mayor to execute new canal bank lease with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. But before we do that, we're going to go to the public. Walter, go ahead.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. In the spirit of trying to be helpful, I believe between you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Mandelis, you talked about the Museum and Historical Society and back and forth. Which is it? It ought to get cleaned up, or are you dealing with that many different names?
No, so the new one, you're right. It's the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society is the proper name. Actually, let me show you.
Going forward?
So it is the previous leases with the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society. The new language that'll be inserted in this agreement will specifically use the same name that was used in the first lease.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In the middle of it all, and you're trying to get it right, a date of implementation, because it's going to change and maybe in future years, but are they flexible enough that the Corps might entertain as you work it out, that the implementation date first year might be either in the fall or bring it back into the spring for the first year, so that you're not doing this in the middle of your,
I wondered about that.
in July, trying to have to worry about a submission date, because they're probably busy in vacations and stuff like that. It couldn't hurt to ask, because I think the staff has got enough work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Perry.
Richard Perry, 46 Pennsylvania Avenue. Just have a question. When you say that it's a term of 1 year, does that have to be affirmatively renewed by the city and by the other parties, or is it automatically renewed unless one of the parties gives adequate notice of termination?
So the lease, maybe I somewhat misspoke. The lease term is actually 25 years, but there are annual requirements that have to occur. So it's not as if it expires every year and we have to get a new lease, but we have to meet the requirements every year. And if we don't meet the requirements, they could terminate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the public? If not, we'll return to the table up here. Commissioners, is there any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion, and how should the
So
motion be
the
worded?
mayor, a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a lease between the Secretary of the Army and the City of Rehoboth Beach, which would, for a 25-year term, with the addition of a paragraph that will specifically terminate the lease with the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society.
So moved.
Second.
We'll go through the motion, then we'll go to additional discussion. We have a motion by Commissioner Pat Kaluzin and a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne to authorize the mayor to essentially execute a new canal bank lease with the Army Corps of Engineers, except we'll use the wording that Glenn gave us. Is there any further discussion?
One last question. I think you mentioned this, but the date is incorrect, right?
Yes.
In the term, and that will be revised. Okay. I thought you said it, but I wasn't sure.
2046, correct?
2046.
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner Mandelis, for inserting the narrative that specifically releases the Historical Society from the liability of that lease. Thank
They were a
you.
little bit surprised to learn that they had that liability.
All righty, thank you. With that, we'll do a roll call vote. Again, this is the authorize the mayor essentially to execute the new lease for the canal bank with the Army Corps of Engineer. We'll start with Commissioner Byrne.
Excuse me, I vote aye.
Commissioner Susan Gay,
Aye.
Commissioner Gossett,
I also vote aye.
Commissioner Legree,
Aye.
Commissioner Shranowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaluzzi,
Aye.
and the mayor votes aye also. The motion's unanimously carried. Thank you very much. What?
Yeah, the property itself, yes. It extends up,
0.43 miles, yes, on the canal dock.
right.
With that, we're going to go backwards to old business 13A and then 13B. These are two items that needed to have this lease acted on before we looked at them. 13A, old businesses, consider a proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 195 Parks and Recreation by amending Section 195-1 definition, parks, by adding a new park name in the list, amending Section 195-2 General Rules and Regulations, number 10, to clarify by adding unauthorized, and amending Section 195-3G Grove Park Canal Dock, clarifying that authorization is required to utilize the canal dock for personal or financial gain. Who wants to take this?
Mayor and Commissioners, you've seen this before, and I would ask the City Arbor / Park and Recreation Supervisor to advance this.
Sure. So as the city manager said, I believe Evan brought this forward before, and the mayor pointed out all three of the changes that we are making, but I can go through it and point out the lines and numbers just so we're all on the same page, literally. So the first one was under the definition park, line 12, adding Lewis Rehoboth Canal Bank. Okay. And then the second change was line 49, number 10, adding the word unauthorized. And then the third change was on the last page of the attachment, lines 136 through 138, reconfiguring that just a little bit so that we can put out the RFPs and have hopefully kayaks and the water taxi businesses utilize the dock. And that's it.
Thank you, Liz. Any discussion or comment or questions for Liz from the table up here? If not, we'll open it to members of the public. Walter, go ahead.
Helpful. What is a description of Lewis Rehoboth Canal Bank?
So it was originally brought up by, I believe, Commissioner Byrne. Is that correct? And it is from I guess it would be south side of the bridge going down towards the condos. So across Rehoboth Avenue. So it's kind of been an undefined park for many years. You have the footpath, we have benches, we have city signs, we have the no smoking that encompasses that. So I think this was just to make that officially a park.
I think that's vague. I think it needs to be narrowed. If you want to call it the east side of the canal, but it ought to have a definitive thing because somebody will challenge it someday and we'll be back here.
Yeah, we considered, Walter, referencing the tax parcel number, because it's the entire tax parcel number right there. We decided not to do that, but I think that there's movement to include a notation on the city map as to that area. So it's going to be identified on the city map, and I think at that point it'll be clear.
Something that's adopted by the city. Thank you very much.
Can we not do something now? What's the name of your unit there?
We are Park Place on the canal.
Park Place on the canal. Could we not put a parenthesis after that and define this area as from the canal bank from south side of the Rehoboth Avenue Bridge to Park Place
On the canal.
on the canal? Can we not do something like that? And then it's done with.
I don't see why not. Nope.
I'm asking Glenn.
I mean, yes.
For what it's worth.
You can certainly do that. I mean, it's a little, there's nothing in this list of other parks that actually, defines the meets and bounds of them, but if it gives, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
What would you like?
If it's
How
gonna
would you
be-
like to handle this? I don't disagree that some more specificity.
But if it's going to be on the city map, won't that be enough?
Yes,
Just
I
like the
would-
rest of these things are on the city map.
Yes.
So on the city map, it's actually going to say, define that area as Lewis Rehoboth Canal Bank.
Yes.
Are we speaking of the zoning map?
Zoning map, right, Liz? Is that what we've
Zoning.
talked about?
Yes, our
Yeah.
wonderful 2010 zoning map.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it just kind of keeping that theme going there, if we will. In the park, we use the term Grove Park Canal Dock, but throughout the rest of the document, we only refer to canal dock. So I know it's technical, but as people read this in 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, people might, as we also in 195-3, Grove Park Canal Dock. And it's just inconsistent throughout the document. Sometimes it's referred to as Grove Park Canal Dock, and other times it's just referred to as Canal Dock. So one or two times, but if you could just do a spell check through there, I would appreciate it.
So the motion can make a mention that for consistency, use Grove Park Canal Dock in all instances where it's referenced.
But just remind me, though, has this already been adopted and we're just making these minor
I
changes?
was going to ask
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I'm feeling like deja vu
Yeah,
here.
yeah, it's already been adopted, so,
You're right.
although I don't think that's a substantive change. So I really think
I
that
think it's fine.
if in your motion you want to say, and every place that Canal Dock is referenced, make sure it's
Yeah.
changed to Grove Park, I think you can do that. with
I
this.
mean,
I think that's wordsmithing. and
I think consistency is good, yeah. But that was, one of my questions was going to be, we are voting on it as an amendment, right? Not as the ordinance. Okay,
Right.
okay.
Any further comment here before I entertain a motion? If not, we'll go to members of the public. Walter, go ahead.
I ask you, and I haven't had enough time to think about it. I think you need to go to line 10 and owned and or managed, and then figure out what you want to say, because we neither own it, and I don't think we want to be accused of whoever lives down at Park Place, are we managing their area? So just try to get it right to begin with. Thank you.
That portion's already been adopted, so if we want to do that one, I think we'd have to come back with a separate ordinance to do it.
That's different than wordsmithing, if you will. Thank you, Walter. Anybody else? Nope. We'll go to, back to the commissioners to entertain a motion to basically adopt the proposed amendments in front of us dated, I don't know, what do you call them? June 14th, version 4.
So moved.
Do I have a we have a motion by Commissioner Pat Caluzzi and a second by Commissioner Patrick Gossett to adopt version 4 dated June 14th of the proposed amendments to Chapter 195 titled Parks and Recreation. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Liz. With the next, we're going to go to item of old business, 13B, consider approval of recommendations from the city manager relative to received RFP responses to the new Grove Park Canal Dock for implementation of a water taxi service and of a kayak service. Sharon?
Thank you, Mayor. As you'll recall, on June 7th at a workshop meeting, the staff and I presented 3 proposals that were received in response to the city's request for proposal that was advertised, and the guidelines and recommendations for your consideration. For the motorized water recreation services, we received 1 bid proposal from Cape Water Tours and Taxi, owned and operated by David and Michelle Green. They met the criteria requested, including the financial responsibilities, the years of service that they have been in operation. They are an experienced U.S. Coast Guard certified entity. I actually met with the Coast Guard this past week, who assured me that Mr. Green and his operation are inspected regularly and meet all the criteria. They have the safety certificates of inspection, the insurance for their vessels, they provide educational tours, private charters, and they will, remind you, install an ADA ramp with a platform and signage. Regarding the non-motorized recreation services RFP, we received 2. The one that I would bring forward is owned by Matthew Carter. He met the criteria requested, including the financial responsibilities, the insurance, safety, years of service, years in business, and experience, training, and education, and he came with excellent references. So I would ask that you bring these 2 entities forward.
What are you asking us to do? Authorize?
To approve and authorize their operation from the Grove Park Canal Dock.
All right. So before we go to the public, is there any discussion up here? You can talk about them independently, perhaps first. See if you have any questions on either recommendation.
Question, if they're approved today, are they effective immediately for operation?
Probably not until the mayor actually executes the lease document, because that's when we have the ability then to actually move forward with these RFPs. So I'd say if you authorize them contingent on the mayor's execution of the lease agreement.
Well, that's something we left off the last chapter 195. However, we don't need that on that last chapter because it's not dependent upon execution of the lease. This one, however, is.
Yes.
Well, along those lines, is there a draft contract, since there are probably a number of variables that were, we talked about putting a lot in the code, and we didn't put it in the code because it was going to be part of the agreement, rules of operation or whatever with the vendors, and so is there a draft contract that includes all that and also includes what they will need from the lease?
There's not a draft contract. There's their proposal that will be made into a contract, if you will, with the city. Again, this is our first year. I can say, and the chief can, back me up if necessary. I think the operation down there on any given beautiful day is going smoothly. There's kayakers, so that there's a great use of the public dock, and it's lovely.
I would agree. I think it's the dock has going along well and what have you. But what we have in front of us are proposals, they're not contracts. And I think that to authorize the city manager to go forward and develop contracts, is what we would need to see, or the mayor has to sign, or what have you. I mean, we've reviewed the contracts for Blue Hen, we've reviewed the contracts for beach concessions, so that seems to be the process. So I think we should continue that process, especially since this is a new application that none of us have experienced before. And just a couple of questions that I had in reviewing the proposals. And again, this may be needed to be outlined in the contracts, but I noticed in reading through, as you described, the certificate of inspection and authorizations, what have you, that Cape Water Taxis is their LLC is Seahorse Charters, doing business as, but the vessels themselves are owned by two different LLCs, Trident Seahorse and Escape Tours. So again, just working that into the contract that the vessels are owned by somebody else, and Cape Water Taxi is operating it, what have you. Again, just to be keep ourselves or the city clear on the aspects of who's responsible, or indemnity, or liability, et cetera. And the same holds true with Quest Adventures. Again, they're two different LLCs referred to in their authorization and insurance documents of Quest Kayaks, Quest Fitness, and Quest Adventures. So again, I just don't know how that works out, but it seems like we need to be dealing with one individual, and if the vessels are owned by somebody else and the insurance is issued to somebody else, that could be problematic in the future, and it's best to clean that up before we fill out a contract. Thank you.
Help me understand, are you asking to delay a vote today essentially to direct the city manager to create a contract to share with us that
No.
we vote on, or?
No, not at all. I think that they authorize the city manager to go forward with developing contracts with both of these organizations, but just pointing out these kind of issues or questions that I have, because as we have previously experienced with leases and kind of not doing our due diligence and homework, we have delayed ourselves. So I don't want this to come back again and have the same experience. Thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll go to the public, and then we'll entertain a motion if you like. Anybody? Walter, I don't know why you don't sit closer.
Put a mic back in the back.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. A couple years ago, outgoing mayor wrote a letter, signed a letter or something, obligated the town in the last couple of days of his office. Nobody knows about it. I don't know if all of you have a copy of the letter that was sent or authorized, or whatever you call it, resolution between the city of Rehoboth and LDOT and or DNREC, et cetera. So thank you, Mr. Gossett. You're right on target for the question of what you asked. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're committing to, and it was not embedded, and I've been watching it, and Ann does a fantastic job in getting it. There was no mention of anything being dropped, so it was a subject for discussion, but this is too much. It's too important. At the last time I asked about a kayak ramp, part of that is engineering, DNREC, Corps of Engineers, the ramp itself, bringing the dredge into the canal with the barge into the canal with the crane on it, whatever the man's name that helped draw it up beforehand and then got tens of thousands of dollars to supervise the project. You don't know what a kayak ramp, sleeve, whatever you want to call it, is going to cost. I watched about 2 weeks ago, two ladies try to take a kayak over the fence. That was very, very interesting. I don't, maybe you can say how the dock is working, because obviously there are people. I understand that there was recently a 32 people group on a kayak from one of the concerned people that submitted a bid that touched base at the dock. I don't know whether it was commercial or not, but it's being used. It's a very nice facility, but you're not ready to go into an agreement. You don't have enough information right now to do it right without having to come back and having to do it again and have Mr. Mandela straighten out what you didn't get right the first time. Is there a proposal to put a kayak ramp in? I heard that was one of the things that the kayak, the non-motorized proposal person wanted. Is there a proposal to put a kayak ramp in for the non-motorized?
That's something that we're looking at, yes.
So again, I asked
There's-
him, how do you draw that in? I think there's more doubts. I think you can get it right, but I think you're pressing it. And to do it halfway and then ask Glenn to do it again, it's money, but get it right the first time, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else? If not, bring it back to the tables. Anybody want to make a motion? What would a motion be like, Glenn?
Well, Mayor, you could do them individually or collectively, but the motion would be something like a motion to authorize the city manager to contract with Cape Water Tours and Taxi for motorized water recreation services consistent with the lease with the Army Corps of Engineers. Then you do a second motion for non-motorized, or you could do them together, either way.
And the contingency.
Contingent upon the mayor executing the lease agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers. Actually, it's with the Secretary of the Army.
So moved. I'm not repeating that.
And are you moving as to both motorized and non-motorized, both RFPs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think Ms. Calusi should recuse herself.
Thank you, Walter. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pat Galuzzi and a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne. I'm going to summarize it. Authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with the two entities shown for the motorized and non-motorized water recreation services as noted in our memo of June 16, 2021, contingent upon the mayor executing the lease with the Secretary of the Army.
And those contracts would be reviewed by mayor and commissioners.
We don't need
Done
that,
in the
we
past.
don't need that in there, but we can, will you send those out to us so that we can, so we're not going to take a formal vote on them, but they'll be available to us? Is that what you want?
Well, I'm just saying, following precedent that we set before that we have reviewed, been able to review in workshops, the contracts with Blue Hen, the contracts with concessions for the beach, concessions, et cetera. So,
Well, that's why I asked earlier, to what extent do you want to go? Because if you want to match those, then we need to bring them back in front of us and vote on them, I believe.
we have to have something to vote on. I think the motion was to authorize the city manager to go forward and establish contracts with the two approved vendors. And then-
Well,
Right, I mean,
I think this is enter into contracts.
That's how I view it. You know, the monetary value of these contracts is not as large as Blue Hen and some of the others, and this is, I think, a more limited operation than something that is citywide. So my intention in the motion was to give the city manager to move forward and actually present the contracts for the mayor's signature or her signature operationally consistent with the discussion that was had here today. If there's something more the commissioners want.
I'd like to just remind the commissioners that the original intent of this was to be more like a business license, and that's how we originally approved this. I don't think it needs to go to the scale of a Blue Hen and a $200,000 a year contract.
Well, perhaps not, but it has a lot of complexity based on the lease with the Army Corps. And so that does add elements to it that we didn't even know until yesterday.
Well, I have full confidence in our city solicitor and city manager, and I feel like this is an administrative item. And of course, I'd like to see the contract, but I don't think we should wait another month before these operations can start.
Would you feel comfortable if she at least drafts the contract and shares it with us, and then you can individually respond to her if you want? But otherwise, that helps
That would expedite things, that's fine with me, yes.
I'm thinking the timing's probably going to work on it because how long is it going to take? It's going to take a few weeks to get the lease finished, is that right? Maybe from between now and the workshop or something?
I don't think it'll take that long to get the lease finished. I mean, the lease is just a couple grammatical things here. The language for the termination of the previous lease is already drafted. It just needs to be inserted. So, I mean, that's something that I could see happening Monday or Tuesday of next week, actually that quickly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it didn't take the Army Corps like 5 or 6
Yeah,
weeks
that's
to
what I was
respond to us in
thinking.
the first place?
That's what I was thinking.
It did, except.
8 weeks? Okay.
Yeah,
And
except-
that's with connections.
Yeah, I know. I know. The issue there, though, is we thought they'd do a simple assignment of the current lease to the city, and because it was a nonprofit versus a government, they did a whole new lease. And
Right,
yeah.
okay.
If I could ask one more question to the city manager. Can you remind us how we came or how they came up with the amounts? We've got Cape Water Taxis paying an annual amount of $1,000 and the kayak company paying $2,000. What's the rationale for the difference?
Yeah, so frankly, because of the lateness of them starting, they, I'll say, threw out a couple of numbers and we settled on those amounts. So they didn't expect to really get in the water, if you will, or get started with any formality until August.
Okay. So when is the expectation that we would renegotiate those rates?
We would renegotiate within the course of
1 year.
signing this contract, like now.
Thank you.
Walter, yes, one more time, please.
Excuse me, Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue, which has been said many times up here, reminding you there is no business license because this is a contract. That's wrong. You don't have it, and the city manager brought it out correctly. There is no business license for the beach service either. These are businesses. They ought to have business licenses.
Thank you, Walter. With that, we have a motion and a second on the floor to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with the two entities noted for motorized and non-motorized water recreation services, contingent upon the mayor executing a lease with the Secretary of Army. And that's the motion that we'll be voting on. As an aside, we have directed the city manager to share the contract with the commissioners for their review. But no action to be taken on that by the commissioners. With that, I'm going to call the question. We're going to start off with.
Where does the public get to see it?
Once they're executed, they'll be public documents. So, I mean, anybody can get it through a FOIA request. If you'd like us to send you a copy.
You have to pay $25 for a FOIA request. It has to go through you. It ought to be a public document.
It's public, but we don't, I mean, loading every single document that this city creates onto a website to make it accessible is just a very difficult task. I mean, I will be happy to send you a copy. Water without, okay. Gotcha.
With that, we're calling the question. Commissioner Dick Byrne.
I vote aye, and I'm very supportive of this. I've been supportive of this for a long time, and it's my hope that this gets expedited so that this, the commercial aspects of this dock can open ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gay.
I'm glad that we've corrected the issues with the lease, with the Historical Society, and with the city, and I'm glad we've gotten that done.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett.
Aye.
Commissioner Legree.
Aye.
Commissioner Chernowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaluzzi.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. There was a very good commercial on WBOC this past week. It showed the Cape Water taxi, mostly in Lewis, but it mentioned it was pending permits and ability to dock down here. It was very good. And the photographs shown of the Rehoboth Beach dock area with the boat there were kind of spectacular. Yeah, so it's quite an exciting thing. So with that, obviously the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Mayor, could I ask a related question to the city manager or city solicitor?
Sure.
What, what is the difference between having a building license and having a contract to do business within a certain part of the city? Oh, I'm sorry, business license, not building.
Speak up, Pat.
Well, a business license, you're not actually contracting with the city, you're just getting authorization to do business within the city. This sort of thing, you're contracting with the city to provide some service within the city that the city wants oversight, some form of oversight.
And it's more limited in scope.
Definitely more limited in scope, right? Mm-hmm.
Would it not make sense that anyone that's contracted to do business in the city inherently has a business license?
Perhaps, yeah.
I say it would, but we haven't done it in the past.
Yeah, okay. I'm just, the question was raised and it made me think.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nothing else, we're going to move to the next item of business. And I want to use the screen. I don't know if you turned it on.
Down to the last one, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, 14B, I guess, we did everything else, right?
Dale Lomas is here representing the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce. You've been very patient. Thank you. Carol Everhart owes you a couple hours for being here. We appreciate it. The next item of new business is item 14B, discuss and consider modifying the city's policy concerning outdoor dining and merchandise racks on public and private property privileges to end sooner than the established date of October 31st due to the Sea Witch Festival and Parade taking place on October 29th, 31st. Do you want to say anything? I know you've got, I think you've made your announcement that Sea Witch is indeed coming here this year, so we're all excited for that and the crowds it brings and the excitement and festivity. So we're very appreciative of that. When I was notified by the chamber that they were indeed having the Sea Witch Festival, I was also at the same time reminded that when we established the October 31st deadline on the policy for use of public sidewalks for merchandise racks, for outdoor dining areas and outdoor dining areas that required use of the pedestrian pathways, when we did that, we publicly mentioned that if Sea Witch came, we would likely have to look at the termination date to see if it needed to be earlier. And indeed, the chamber again approached me and indicated that, as you can see here, if you refresh your memory on the fencing that they put up, it needs to be continuous in the different block areas there. And you can see on the median side, but also on the side of the street that it is continuous. You can see why it's continuous is because of the size of the crowds we get. And because of that, therefore, the pedestrian pathways have to be terminated a sufficient time prior to the parade so that they can set up their barriers. And Dale, do you know when do they set the barriers up? I think it's early morning.
Well, yeah, the barriers come like Santa Claus does. When you go to sleep on Friday night, there's nothing. When you wake up on Saturday morning, there's barriers between, you start at, I guess it's South Street, and come all the way around Rehoboth Avenue, the bandstand, go down to about 5th Street, I believe is where the barriers end. So, yeah. And the issue is, two issues really. One is we need those crowd control barriers to have the parade. If we put them in front of the Jersey barriers, it would squeeze Rehoboth Avenue a little bit more, and we need as much space as possible mainly for the bands and for people carrying the balloons. If it gets a little breezy or windy, they need to spread out a little bit more, so we need as much space as possible. The other issue with the Jersey barriers in a situation like this
is we're going to see more people here than we've seen since the last Sea Witch, at least on Rehoboth Avenue.
Yeah.
And those Jersey barriers are going to become podiums for men, women, and children to stand on. So it's an unfortunate situation to lose a weekend, but we really need the Jersey barriers removed. You know, we're not 100% against leaving, having the restaurants being able to squeeze some tables along the front of their building if the city is okay with that. I mean, that's between you and the businesses. But the Jersey barriers for us for the parade need to go.
Thank you, Dale. I think there's several points here to be made. One is that the pedestrian pathways need to succumb to the parade route. The other thing for me is that the outside dining areas and the merchandise racks need to be lessened, if you will. Merchandise racks probably just end it. And if we want, we could allow 2 for dining tables up against the front facade as we do for the post-November 1st policy. But the point is, we are going to have substantial crowds on the sidewalks, walking up and down, and I think it will be overwhelming our public pedestrian situation there. So with that, we want to have a reminder that what needs to be taken up would be the traffic barriers, the planters nicely installed and maintained by Main Street folks, and also the asphalt ramps. And then, if you recall, our November 1st program pushes tables up against the facades. If we want to maintain that, then we can try to do that as long as we have those standards in place so that we have adequate pedestrian pathway widths along the entire parade route on Rehoboth Avenue, as well as all the other streets. And we would be taking up the barriers, as I understand, wholesale, not taking them up only on Rehoboth Avenue and leaving them up elsewhere. So I want to turn it over to Sharon to discuss with you any logistics and what the potential time frame would be concerning that they need time to be able to remove traffic barriers, asphalt ramps, and then whoever's responsible for removing the planters. I'll turn it over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so the Sea Witch event itself is Friday 29, 30, 31, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, last 3 days in October. I would propose that the commissioners alter the date, the last day of outdoor dining, October 31, change that to Sunday, the end of the day, close of business for restaurants and businesses, Sunday, October 24. And we would then, the city staff would then start removing the barriers, the asphalt ramps, and the planters. Main Street is turning over the planters to the city, so it would be the city's responsibility to then remove the planters. Director of Public Works assures me that it would take less than 24 hours to do this, and he believes that with a cushion of Tuesday, October 26, so Monday and Tuesday, 25, 26 October, everything would be ready by close of business, end of day on Tuesday. Chief Banks also assured me that that doesn't impose any problems with their operation, which I believe starts on Thursday.
Yes, as it was mentioned, the barricades begin up on Friday, so overnight they go for Saturday morning. However, earlier in the week, we start putting a lot of cones out, signage, and all to give people advance notice where they can and cannot park. So again, we need that space open up after Public Works does. We'll come in, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and start putting all the signage and postings, so it's well in advance, as we've been requested to do in past years.
Okay.
My main thing is time constraints. I'm worried about you trying to do too much in too short a time. If you're comfortable with that, that's fine. So obviously, there's a necessity to do this. We did talk about it before when we established the policy, and with an end date of October 31st. What I seek to do, since we voted on establishing that policy, I would seek a vote tonight on a motion such as to modify the city's policy concerning outdoor dining and merchandise racks on public and private property privileges to end sooner than the established date of October 31st due to the Sea Witch Festival and Parade, with an ending date of
October 24.
October 24th, which is Sunday. Is there any further discussion here before we go to the public?
Mayor, I'd like to make a distinction between the difference between public and private, and if folks want to continue to use their private property, why we would not allow that.
I'd be fine with doing that if you wanted to make a distinction. I would say, though, that our policy for egg or green turtle ends November 1st. And I think we would need to address that, continued use of that in our when we resume discussions on outdoor dining post-pandemic. Because there are certain rules in place that at some point need to be followed. And for instance, the total capacity that I know is being exceeded now, and we're looking the other way, frankly. But so, you know, if you want some of those to continue to use private property through October 31st, that's fine with me. Just make sure the motion.
Yeah, I would be inclined to allow that through the November 1st date. My hesitation voting on this today, and I'm in favor of it, but I don't think the businesses, the community have digested this. And we usually in practice take this up at a workshop meeting, make it public before we start voting on something like this. So that's my only hesitation, but I think it makes sense that it comes down before Sea Witch. I worry about how the businesses and some other community organizations may react to it without it being talked about first. And then giving an opportunity to
Yeah, I don't disagree, you know, but we did mention this earlier.
Yeah.
So it was
And I
very
talked to Carol
clearly
about it.
mentioned publicly when we established the policy that there was a good possibility that the Sea Witch comes. We need to do this, and what are we going to do if the majority of businesses say, well, we don't want you to do this? We have established the minimum amount of time available for the city staff to remove the barriers and prepare the area. What more can we do? So
I don't disagree. I'm just throwing a consideration out.
I understand your concern, but I think that we really don't have any alternative but to be able to end this on, suggested by the city manager on October 24th, to prepare for the large crowds. And I think that as the quicker we are able to make a final decision and announce to the businesses that that's what's going to happen, that they can then react themselves to be prepared for this. Sometimes we're accused of keeping things too close to the chest and not getting the word out, not communicating, but I think in this particular instance, we're giving them quite a bit of time to react to it. And again, I don't know of any option of any other option we have than to clear the streets. But as Mr. Lomas had mentioned, though, it comes to the planters, and just to come into that mix, we also have some beautiful planters located in the islands along Rehoboth Avenue. And if people would use the Jersey barriers to stand on to get a better look at the parade, would they also use those planters to stand on to get a better look at the parade? So just something that the city manager consider of I don't know whether to move them or cap them or do something of that nature, but just they're beautiful, they're there, but how people react these days would be something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, we could certainly postpone, there's time to postpone this for a vote at the August regular meeting. Again, I don't see a lot of advantage, but we can certainly do that. What's the pleasure of the Commissioners? I either need a motion or a concurrence, consensus to defer to August.
I would like to make a motion to consider modifying the city's policy concerning outdoor dining and merchandise racks on public and private property privileges to end on October 24th in anticipation of large Sea Witch Festival crowds and the parade taking place on October 29 through 31.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Gossett and a second by Commissioner Legree to essentially end the outdoor dining policy and merchandise rack policy on October 24th rather than October 31st due to the Sea Witch Festival and Parade taking place. Any further discussion?
Can I ask for a friendly amendment to remove private property?
I would turn to City Manager for any opinion on that, since you're going to have to be the ones to enforce and activate this, so.
To permit the private property establishments to continue through October 31.
That's what,
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I'm fine with that.
And remember what that does, that perhaps if they're off city property, then maybe that's adequate. But remember, that period is the Sea Witch Festival, and there's going to be thousands and thousands of people around. So if there are situations where the crowds will interfere with private property, then that's probably not a good thing. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I mean, I think that's a determination that each business needs to individually make.
Well, how many are we really talking about? One is on Wilmington Avenue, right?
One's at
And
the
the
end
other
of.
one closes at 1 or 2? Yeah.
I think those are the only two I can think of.
So they get an extra
Days.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days.
so I would accept that amendment that the private property privileges would still maintain the end date of October 31st, 2021.
All right. Before we go to a vote, any
I
member?
accept that addendum.
To the second, okay, thank you. With that, any members of the public have any input? Thank you, Dale. With that, we'll call the question. The motion is effectively to bump up the end date of our policy for outdoor dining and merchandise racks to October 24th from October 31st due to the Sea Witch Festival, yet allowing for use of private property for outdoor dining to retain the end date of October 31st, essentially. All righty. With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dale. I'm going to tell, yes, you can leave. You can leave. There you go. There you go.
Start here.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Commissioner announcements and comments. Again, I mentioned earlier about a wireless consultant, so we've already taken care of that. Are there any other Commissioner announcements or comments?
Mayor, very quickly, a couple of nights ago, I received 2 phone calls, one after the other, one from Senator Ernie Lopez, the next one from Representative Speaker Schwarzkopf, who both indicated that the governor had signed off on $50,000 for the beautification project on State Road, the Triangle Garden that has looked scruffy forever. Yeah, well, it's
a good way to
as
describe
polite
it.
as I can be. That $50,000 check will be coming to the city of Rehoboth Beach within the next 10 days, and it will fund the plan for that triangle garden. And so they each came up 25,000 out of the state senate and 25 out of the House. So kudos and thanks to our speaker and our local senator for supporting us.
Thank you. And I told you earlier, I called both of those independently and thanked them. And thank you for your part in that, Commissioner Byrne. Any other commissioner announcements or comments? If not, we'll go to the next, review future meeting dates. The next is our August 9th workshop, 9 a.m. And with that, is there any further citizen comment? If not, then we'll adjourn this meeting at 4:31 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.